Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our Islam at A-Level Spring Meetup for 2024. We're really privileged to have Lat speaking with us today after an epic weekend of Strictly RE, or maybe we're just riding that CPD wave together, which is fantastic. And lots of people have asked for recording later, so that's what we'll have here. We have got a chance to have breakout and discuss different things through the presentation, but also just pop any questions you've got in the chat, and we'll have time for a kind of freer conversation a bit later as well. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. And I'd like to just hand over to Lat now to present to us about engaging young adults in talking about Islam.
Ruth, thank you. It's lovely to be with you, colleagues. And just to introduce myself, I was an RE teacher for 12 years in Leicester, and then I've been an RE advisor for nearly 30 years with RE Today. Great pleasure to work with teachers. Of course, I don't currently teach A-level, so perfectly happy to bow to your multiple expertise in all kinds of ways there. But what I do is I'm a bit of an active researcher around Islam and young people, and I'm going to share some of that with you this afternoon. And I'm also forever interested in the ways in which, as Ruth put it, we can get young people, not just 16 to 18s, but including 16 to 18s, to think about Islam and talk about religion. So the attention is not at all about exam technique. It's not at all about terminology. It's actually more of a hinterland contribution in some ways, which is why I've used that rather diffuse dotted circle to introduce it. I'm on the sort of right-hand side of this and share with you some examples of material that I use to enable young people to think and talk about Islam in increasingly deep ways. In some ways is a little bit of a bigger objective than getting top grade at A-level, although I have always thought that a holistic presentation of religion in RE is the best way to achieve high standards. Teaching to the test is important on its day, but actually having that hinterland is really, which is why I've allowed myself to start with a Snickers bar this afternoon, because we went to Cardiff High School and asked 17-year-old young Muslims there if you could wear a T-shirt that would express your deen, that would express your sense of akhlaq, then what would you choose? And you know the slogan that goes with Snickers bars, hungry for the truth, why wait? No, it doesn't say that. The for the truth bit is what this young lad has added in his kind of adbuster Islamic T-shirt. Hungry for the truth, Shuhada, why wait? Just look at his body language for a moment. I like the confidence in his eye. And then would you look at this young gentleman who's chosen his T-shirt to express his deen, says, I'm a Muslim, ask me about Islam. I like to speak for myself and tell people about my religion as it is. Many people think they can tell me about my religion, but I know it from the inside. It's annoying. Dialogue would be the answer. And I really love this young lady who's fortunate enough to be Haji already at the age of 17. And she comes back and orders a T-shirt that says, relax, Haji. And she said, actually, this is my experience at Makkah, that I came back with love for everyone. So if you meet me now, you can relax because I love you all. I like that emphasis on the spiritual impact of Hajj that she gives. And then there's young Noah, who's got this one, Muslims believe in Jesus, peace be upon him, and says about it, I like these T-shirts, bold phrases. The purple says, Muslims believe in Jesus, peace be upon him. And it's annoying when the media suggests that Islam oppresses women. So these T-shirts, they represent a variety of people in the faith. These are good. Just notice that our young men and our young women are all of them Welsh Muslims, are 17 years of age in year 12. They're not necessarily doing religious studies A-level, but they were eager to volunteer to take part in this. And this T-shirt I had to commission especially because Zara said this is what she wanted to wear. Muhammad was a feminist, and I couldn't find a provider who was doing that. So we had the text printed on there. She says, the media image of British Islam needs improving. The shirts show how diverse British Muslims are, different lifestyles, looking different. See the stereotypical images. It's very annoying. My shirt, Muhammad was a feminist, bold phrase, clear misconception. Now, of course, that one raises, doesn't it? Zara's chosen T-shirt raises the issue of whether Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a feminist. Certainly, we can note that he gave dignity and rights within marriage and economic capacity and actually theological conversational opportunities to women within the culture of his time. But the word feminisme, coined in French by Charles Fourier, utopian socialist French philosopher, in 1837, postdates the time of the Prophet by 11 centuries. So was Muhammad a feminist? That's an interesting question to debate. I've been using the shirts with younger students, and indeed, as I say, I don't teach A-level Islam myself just at the moment. So often I'm engaged with pupils in the Islam in Britain conversation with other age groups. But I've had young learners designing T-shirts for me to go there. But for yourselves, thinking about that, just take a look at those 5. What do those 5 young people say or show? What kind of expression of deen are those T-shirts? And what does it say about British Islam? What does it say about British Islam that those young people see themselves in the terms in which they've described themselves there? I'm rather interested by all of that. My a follow-up example, as I say, asks younger pupils. I've got year 5s doing this. Take a T-shirt outline, design a T-shirt that you think young Muslims in Britain today would find popular, would find worth wearing, would be interested to wear. I love this one, actually. Allah calling. Honestly, if you got the call from God, would you decline it, or would you take that? And I've just been getting children, youngsters, younger than yours, to use my written prompts there to write about their T-shirt designs for young Muslims to express some aspect of Islamic life in Britain, the ways in which young Muslims might want to put that into action. Those photos come from my pack, Picturing Islam, Picturing Muslims, which I wrote and published with my brilliant colleague Stephen Pett. And that is actually a part of the project we're running at the moment in RE today, which is an Understanding Islam project, which is going to see publication in the next 12 months. It'll be a part work. There'll be 3 parts for primary and 3 parts for secondary. As a part of that, I also wanted to share this with you. I describe myself as roughly an active researcher. I'm not a university researcher. I do this out of interest as an RE advisor. But we have collected data in what we're calling, perhaps a little bit grandly, the British Muslim Youth Survey. And we have 320 respondents to that survey in the 11 to 18 age range. So far, I've published 4 quite simple research articles about that I hope might be of interest to you, and which I will put into the chat bar, some information that you can download and use. I'll put that into the chat bar during the session today, although I can't do 2 things at once. So I'm just going to concentrate on talking about it for the moment. In the British Muslim Youth Survey, there are 22 questions, and young Muslims aged 11 to 18 are invited to respond to as many of those as they'd like to. So we actually have about 220 respondents who answered the question, what makes you proud of Islam? And I've also got articles on what pupils, students, young people value about the life of the mosque, their experience of stereotyping in British culture today, and what they would say about Islamic values, what matters most to them as young Muslims. So just to go up the page there, this is the process we've been using, okay? I've selected from those 220 respondents a set of 21 answers to that question, what makes you proud of Islam? I've chosen what is typical, but also what is extraordinary. And I've got a more extended sample that's on our NATO website of 39 responses altogether. That's a bit more comprehensive. We asked the class, first of all, and you should do this perhaps with your A-level students before you show them my research sample. What do you think young people would say, young Muslims would say about their pride in their tradition, community, and their faith in Islam? And then when they've made some good guesses at that, and seriously, we'd expect our A-level students to be able to engage with that question at quite a deep level, wouldn't we? Give the pupils the data to read out and get them. You can cut it up into cards if you want and sort it out, or you can just give it to them as the article, which I'll show you in just a moment. And here's a kind of research base. Did young Muslims in Britain say the things that made them proud to match what you guessed? Did you notice about what replies were popular or exceptional? What does this sample show you about Islamic pride in the faith from young Muslims? I wonder if you could get your A-level students to organise further research, a similar survey among more young Muslims, or a survey that asks young Christians, are you proud to be a Christian? What makes you proud to be a Christian? Or further than that, are you proud to be an atheist? What makes you proud to be an atheist? Whilst I'm waffling that, you're guessing, aren't you? You're guessing, what did the young Muslims say made them proud? And here comes the first bit of my sum. Let's have a look at those. Zara, 13. I'm proud of Islam because people convert. They love the religion, and it makes other people, and it makes me proud to see people who revert to my religion. 14-year-old Amit. My religion encourages peace. We come together. Tasnia. Many people are converting to Islam. There's a theme, isn't there? 14-year-old young man. I'm very proud to call myself Muslim. To say I worship Allah, I pray to Allah. Everything about Islam makes me proud. Up the page, take a look at some more. Would you look at Amina, age 13? What makes me proud of Islam? It holds our answers about a lot of things in life. It guides us through tough times. It's a very peaceful religion. Teaches us how it's important to respect and love everyone equally. 18-year-old Maisha. I'm proud of the generosity of the community. I'm proud of Islam because no matter what happens, people in the community are so respectful in the mosques to each other in general. Islam has helped the community to be peaceful. It's interesting, isn't it, to see some themes emerging from that. And what I want you to do there is to take that data. It's not just a tiny sample. It's quite a big sample. I don't know a Muslim youth sample that's as big as ours, but quite a big sample that asks young Muslims that question. Makes you proud of Islam. Here's my second page. This gets you up to, I promised you 21, didn't I? This would take you to 21 answers to the question. Let's look at two of those, please. Maria, 14, bottom left. Knowing the truth, people are often curious about what happens in the afterlife, or even if there is an afterlife. I was so blessed that God has guided me to Islam, chosen me as a follower. That's what makes me proud. The message of the Quran means that we are able to answer nearly every question or argument. That's interesting, isn't it? Sort of philosophical pride in Islam. And look at 13-year-old Amma. Everything. The way we dress, the beauty of Islam, prayer, celebration, Ramadan, God, everything makes me proud of Islam. Again, just go up the page and just notice Asha, age 16. I'm proud to be part of Religion of Peace. Do you know, that took me by surprise. How many of our sample, 220 young people, how many of them commented on the peacefulness of Islam in its practice, in its intentions, in the contribution it makes to their inner life, in the way that that counters the stereotype of Islam in Britain today, often too much stereotype around violence. What makes me proud? Zinedine. Who was he named after, I wonder? Zinedine Zidane, I think, at age 12. What makes me proud of Islam is that there are no racist people in the religion. Well, that may not be true, but it's his perception, isn't it? So, colleagues, the first thing I've got to share with you today is that material from the British Muslim Youth Survey, which enables young voices, young Muslim voices, to be heard in the classroom. And I'll just pop the first item of that into the chat bar there. As I say, I can't do two things at once, but let me just try. And that one you can download straight away. I have got 4 research items that I've got there so far, and I'm very happy to share more of those. I'll be writing another one this term. I'm trying to sort of release that material bit by bit in RE today. So this one, Muslim, have I got it? Sorry, struggling with me screen share there. I'll get there in a moment. But this one offers you a chance to print off and use and share that material with your pupils in the context of, oh, I can see what I've done wrong there. That's far too big a solution. I've searched my whole hard drive.
Sorry, I should have taken them from you first to then put them in the chat.
Oh, no, that's all right. I can do them as I go. But I've searched my whole hard drive for that rather than me.
And when I'm looking away from the screen, I'm tweeting. I'm not being terribly rude. I felt like I should have said that in the session.
No worries. That's absolutely fine.
That's what I'm doing, everybody.
Yeah, that's fine. So there we go. Oh, that'll do nicely. The one I'm putting up is actually here we go. I'm going to put up the one about values because that's the one I found.
So sorry, what do you call it? Do you call it the
British Muslim Youth Survey? We're calling that, which, as I say, is a slightly grandiose title for what is a low-key piece of research methodology in some ways. But next, this is the section that we've created about young Muslim people and their engagement with the mosque. And I'm really interested in the texture of this. Again, I've got a couple of pages for you there, and I'm not going to plow through these now, but I do think these are usable material at A level. I think that it's too easy to teach the A-level specification as if you're plowing through a glossary, and I don't think that's a particularly effective way to teach it. So when it comes to looking at Ummah, and when it comes to looking at Muslim community, and when it comes to looking at the day-by-day, week-by-week life of the mosque, then I think this raw material is really helpful. We just have a notice. Look at Haman's one. He's 15, right-hand side of the screen at the bottom there in a green box. What I value about the mosque is that you're able to learn things that you may not have done at home. But I would like to change this about the mosque to make them freer or a lot cheaper, transport to get there and back. I know a lot of young Muslims who would love to go to mosque, but they can't. They haven't got anyone to drop them off. They're unable to pay the fees. We value that there is a house of Allah in our community where we can pray and find out about Islamic feasts. You know, I ask the young people, what do you value about the mosque, but also what would you like to change about mosque communities? And some of them have given quite simple, straightforward points like that. One or two have been a little more controversial in their responses. Let's look at Asher, bottom middle left-hand column, age 11. I really used to like the mosque, but I've had to move to a new mosque and people were rude. There were some nice people, but I started doing my reading at home. So one of the things you get from this is quite a textured engagement from young people inside the Muslim community about their own sense, what it means to be a part of the mosque community. And then the third one I've put up for you here, again, which I will share, picks out, we got about 200 responses to this. You have an experience of stereotyping from your own life, from your own youthful life. And I just picked two out of there. But look at 13-year-old Safa, the very first one. I got called Shamima Begum outside of Asda. This is happening to younger children. We just do our own thing. We're not harassing other people, but people call us terrorists. I feel like the media portrays us Muslims as all bad and as extremists. And pick up the last one there as well by 16-year-old Mo. I really dislike how Islam is portrayed heavily in a way that it truly is not. Lots of people read these articles where evil groups and events are linked back to the religion, even though they don't represent it or follow it, they brand this beautiful religion with terms like violence. Colleagues, I don't know what you think, but I think these are articulate young Muslims giving us plenty of pause to think about the place of Islam in British society today. And I think this is good material to use for A-level teaching because it reveals to our students of A-level something about the almost intimate texture of young Islamic life in Britain today. You've got actually four examples from me in a way there. You've got the T-shirts, and then you've got three different sections of my British Muslim Youth Survey results collected together in ways that I think work as classroom resources that I think you'll be able to use with your students. Could I just invite you there? Would you take a moment to type into the chat? What do you notice? And I'll keep it as low-key as that as we start. What do you notice about these ideas from young Muslims? This is the T-shirt I want to wear to express my deen, or from young Muslims, this is my experience of stereotyping. This is why I value being part of the mosque. I'll shut up for a couple of minutes there and just give you the chance to type what you notice, what strikes you into the chat bar in relation to what you've seen in the last 12 or 14 minutes. It's always slightly annoying, isn't it, at the end of a long, hard day at school to be told to type stuff into the chat bar? But thank you, because immediately it's interesting to see. Thank you, Annie. I do agree with you that the youngsters' ideas about how peaceful their religion is are a striking counter to the stereotype that associates Islam with violence, or indeed with some forms of psychological repression or as an attack on mental health, which we see in the media. I mean, have some fun with the T-shirts as well if you want to. That's interesting, Lindsay, that among our 320 respondents, a high number, 220, spoke about how they're proud of Islam, why they take great pride in their faith. Keep those coming. I'll just wait for a few more seconds because I know it takes a bit of time to work out what you want to say. Just a moment. Thank you. Yes, very interesting. I've put into the web chat there an article that I'm going to refer to the next bit of what I wanted to share with you. And here we have Muslim artist Ali Calligraph. What an interesting man he is. I want to tell you a bit about his story, and I'm really grateful to Ali for sharing some of his art with me to use in religious education. So the learning intentions of this might help students to understand Islamic rules for the making of art and consider how the 99 beautiful names are presented, interpreted by an Islamic artist who works in, he's a French artist actually, he works in Lyon, and to explain clearly some understandings of Allah and critically evaluate the work of this artist. Do look at his website, it's in French, but you can easily translate it. And he has a Facebook group. If you want your students to join his Facebook, then he'll let them in. He is amazed at British RE. I've made contact with him. I've got only a digital friendship with him. And he cannot believe that every pupil in British schools learns about Islam. That's Ali there. And my interview with him, again, I would use this as presentation material for teaching A-level. He has a fascinating life story. He was brought up, it's a Muslim family, but not at all a practicing Muslim until he reached his teenage years. But his dad was really interested in art, and he's got something going on there. So he says, when I was a little kid, then I had a mystical spiritual dimension in a solitary way, even though I didn't know anything about Islam. And when I was 10, a friend, who was a Muslim friend at school, shared with me just a bit of paper with the Arabic words on it. We are all brothers. And just something about it. I looked at the Arabic and it gave me real joy. So I never did Islamic practice until I was 15, but then I began to fast in Ramadan. Ali's 40 now, and he says, in the 25 years since, I've been engaged in learning my religion, the joy of living more active spiritually, carrying out social action. He actually works on a tricky project. He's a Muslim youth worker, and he works in the banlieue of Lyon with young people who are maybe alienated from the community and culture they're growing up in, Muslim young people. French society is not good. There's no religious education in France, no integration. It's really hard in some ways to be a young Muslim. So that's his day job, is as a youth worker among, what should we call them, alienated Muslim young people in his big city setting. But when he comes home in the evenings, he does a bit of calligraphy to renew his faith and maintain and develop it. So guess what kind of art he makes? Well, actually, he draws upon the 99 beautiful names in a lot of ways. I'm just using this for younger students, but drawing attention to some of the beautiful names. I don't know if you've been using it, but I've been liking Dr. Musharraf Hussein's recent publication, The Majestic Quran, the Quran rendered in English, kind of paraphrase, which is intended to be suitable for teenage readers. And I've used his version of the beautiful names in that little box that I've given there.
What was the person's name again, sorry?
Dr. Musharraf Hussein. Okay, and he'll actually, if you look that up, Dr. Musharraf Hussein, The Majestic Quran, he will send a free copy to your school. That's very generous of them. And Ali Calligraph, well, I like particularly the modernity and the colourful vivacity of the artwork that he creates. This piece, he says, inspired by Muslim theologian and philosopher from 10 centuries ago, al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali says one cannot conceive the good without the beautiful. Islam is a civilization of 1,000 riches. So here he has painted the most glorious Al-Majid. He says, there you are. That's what Al-Ghazali was on about. So I like that discussion with students. How long would it take to make this? Does this piece of work show that Allah is most glorious? Does it show how to make what is true beautiful? I think those are great philosophical engagements with Islamic art. And then I want to show you 3 shahadas that Ali Calligraph has drawn. This one, he says, so Islam is a revealed religion, organized around 5 pillars. This one shows that the Holy Quran's opening words and goes on to exemplify the deeds of the beloved. So again, I want pupils to do a bit of an artistic analysis of that. This is my comment on it, but I'd say it's interesting what Pantones he's used there. I'll say it vibrates with different colors. Guess what I'll show you next? This one. And Ali says about this is an expression of my spiritual experience. When I'm doing this calligraphy, I feel that my pen has fixed something and I hope those who see it will appreciate the beauty, the justness, the harmony exuded by these works, these versions of Shuhada. This one, of course, in black and gold recalls the Kisveh at the Kaaba, doesn't it? But also lots of Islamic calligraphy using black. And this one, again, Ali speaking about the spirituality of the beholder and the composition must become one. So look at it, keep looking at it, and let it talk to you, and see if it opens an artistic channel of communication. I love the prayer mat background of this. And then I love the fact that the letters of the Shuhada are picked out from the prayer mat just by the multicolored pastel background. Does this show a conception of the world and an energy to live? Meant to. 3 Shuhada artworks, in some ways incredibly similar, but each one actually rather vibrantly different. Which one do you like best? Why? And you know, sometimes I find at A-level, as I say, I'm not teaching A-level myself at Islam at the moment, but all my A-level classes ever, sometimes the students would come in and they sit there like lumpen pieces of silent clay. And just to get them to talk was the first challenge, a difficult first challenge. And I must admit that I find, compare these 3, pick a favourite. Well, it's not a difficult starting conversation, is it? Ali has more to say. Calligraphy is where I rest my soul. I've got 2 passions, intervening with young people to reduce tension and violence in crises that they're going through. But secondly, calligraphy, where I rest my soul, where I relate the divine to the beautiful, the harmonious. That's an amazing connection, isn't it, he makes between his spirituality and his work. I'm a youth worker and I'm a calligrapher. I'm doing both in the name of Allah. This one, called, of course, in French, Nom d'Allah. I think there are 14 of the names of Allah in this. And I think it's actually his most beautiful piece of work. I absolutely love the color relationships that he's built into that. And the delicacy of what looks to me, a Westerner, looks to me like an italic brushstroke. He's probably got a different word. But the ways in which that Nom d'Allah summarizes something of the spirituality of Ali Calligraph's work. He talks about his early life. My parents took me to museums. We'd go to Paris and visit all these amazing museums. And my father was a painter, and he did all these canvases that I'd never seen. I didn't see him paint before he died. But there's truth in painting, and then even more in calligraphy, the geometry of the soul expressed by. When I was a teenager, I grew up with that. And first of all, I was a tag artist, a graffiti artist, a dance artist, and a rap artist. But now I'm an Islamic calligrapher. Colleagues, I don't know if you come across Ali Calligraph's, but his interview that I put into the chat bar, and which Ruth will send round afterwards, I think that's, in some ways, is that really targeted at A-level? Well, yes and no. But I want young people to develop that hinterland of understanding and engagement with Islamic culture. And I like the way that Ali Calligraph and his generous sharing of his work enables that. On his Facebook group, it translates into English pretty well, which is your favourite of these pieces. Anybody like to say? We're not such a big, you can't just open the microphone and say, oh, I really like the look of that.
I really like all the pieces, but yeah, I was going to say I've used him with spirited arts competition. But what he said about beauty really made me think, and the fact that he brought Al Ghazali. I mean, Al Ghazali's all the way through the OCR spec.
Absolutely, yes.
And you mention that, and then you can use that. You know, he's showing that. You know, I just think that spiritual element again is something that isn't talked about as much, I think, sometimes. And I love that about our A-level spec, where we've got that kind of Sufi, mystical, spiritual aspect.
Yeah, we should do that, shouldn't we? We should do more of that.
I think the fact that came through from the student who said, oh, she'd gone to Hajj and come back. You know, with my students, often talk about, and she'd come back and said, I love everyone. And that element, I think, has really come through strongly. Yeah,
I'll come back to that because I've got the most inspirational story of the impact of Hajj to tell you towards the end of my session. So there's some tasks that you could use with those. I'm going to send you all of this. You'll have access to PowerPoint afterwards. I think Ali Calligraph's story is really interesting. I think it's in our work at RE Today on Islam, we are doing a project called Understanding Islam. And we have been wanting to kind of give a conceptual structure to it. And we've worked on that very extensively with our Muslim consultants. And those 5 initial key ideas in the green circles are exemplified by the 14 conceptual examples surrounding those with, I wonder what you like or dislike about that. I'm going to do this bit very quickly because I think this builds up to the conceptual picture of Islam that we want to teach at A level. If I expand my initial 14 to 25 ideas, then notice there that I want to teach pupils about the idea of God, the qualities of God, concept of God, names of God. When it comes to revelation, I'm interested to start with the idea of a messenger, of prophethood, of Rishalah, but also to expand that to the life of Prophet Muhammad and then Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, and so on. And just notice that if you take that a little further, well then, what concepts would you add to take it up to 35 concepts? Those are actually the 35 that we're working with in the context of our Understanding Islam project. If you gave that to your students, perhaps you'd start with that one. And then you move on to the bigger one and ask pupils, can you organize these concepts? Then that's an interesting aspect of their developing understanding of what it means to get a grip on Islamic theologies. But of course, when we were doing that, then one of our Muslim consultants on our advisory group said, yeah, okay, I like it, but would you please reorganize it like this, that it's the concept of Allah that is central, and then we'll organize akhlaq, revelation, iman, ibadah around that, and then you can put your examples around those 4 big ideas. So we like this kind of whirly conceptual expression of what pupils might need to understand in reference to Islam. I just share that with you because it's a bit of a background to my own thinking at the moment. And it fits in the context of stuff you know here, which says we've got all these issues in the representation of Islam, both in British RE and in United Kingdom mainstream theologies and mainstream media. And Joyce Miller, brilliant RE advisor from Bradford, retired now, she talks about the satanization of Islam in the British media and how the RE response to that can be a certain sanitization. And she says, you've got to not do either of those. You've got to not satanize or sanitize. You've got to try and respond to Islam for real, as it really is. But in terms of what the pictures of Islam we use in RE, then there is a danger that those drift to Islam by numbers, don't they? On God, 5 pillars, obligatory acts. And you get a bland, repetitive, uncontroversial, challenge-free, almost in the end, even reinforcing the stereotypes in the way that we present British Islam. So my passion here, my engagement is to say, can we present a British Islam that is bold, that enables pupils to progress in their learning all the time, that engages students with controversy and challenge, and is subtle and nuanced? And what I'm kind of trying to do in my work, not so much with A-level in some ways, you might think, oh, he's a bit of a fraud coming, but maybe you'll find something useful in it. What I'm trying to do is represent Islam for real in the ways that I and to do that, lots of my examples today are from the arts because actually that's my passionate interest. And I've been using the art of Ahmed Mustafa, brilliant Egyptian-British Muslim artist for many years. And I just totally love his work. So would you have a good stare at this example, please? And can you first of all notice that if you took those 2 pieces of cut up cubes, and if you just twisted the smaller one round a bit and slotted it onto the larger one, can you see what would happen? It would make a cover. It would make 1 cube. And in Kufic script, the ancient typical script of the names, the beautiful names of Allah, on 99 different faces of this piece of work, you will find all of the beautiful names. But if you put it together as a cover, ooh, clever boy, Ahmed Mustafa, what's he done? He's put all 99 names inside his model of the cover. This piece of work is actually called the Transcendental Mansions of the Moon. And I have used this writing frame to get pupils to engage with it, to get students to think about the work of art. And they won't really be able to do that unless you give them some information. So I've got this information sheet about this work. Ahmed Mustafa, this is oil and watercolor on rag paper, 1999. He was born in 1943. And he says the words of the Fatiha are interlaced in the square Kufic script, a subtle layer of cursive writing in the sky, which affirms the text of Quran, Surah 2, Ayah 5, to God belong the east and the west. And here there is God's countenance. God is infinite, all-knowing. And the rhythm of the piece picks up then Quran 34:11. Do good deeds lavishly without stint. Give thought to their steady flow. Lovely. I'm not going to read out this whole commentary to you here, but in this lovely commentary, making reference to key texts from the Quran at every point, Ahmed Mustafa has created a work of art which picks up so many key Islamic ideas. The monumental landscapes generated by the geometric form give the viewer a sense of drama, a transcendental power, exploring the secrets of the cosmos. So Dr. Stephen Spurl gives that commentary on Ahmed Mustafa's image, the transcendental mountains. Try this with your students. Give them the commentary by Dr. Stephen Spurl. Give them the writing frame that asks, what do you notice? What's your type of this image? What do you think the photo raises an issue about? What's interesting here? And then the cloudy bubbles on my writing frame ask harder questions. What does this make you think about? How would Muslims respond to this piece? What does the picture express about key Muslim ideas? It is a kind of commentary on on Quranic text. And then, spend a little time quietly with the beauty and complexity of this image. I think those things are kind of worth doing. And I think they're worth doing because they connect to the A-level specification, but also for a couple of other really good reasons, because they represent the creative spirituality of Islam in ways that are sophisticated and related to Quranic text, and in ways that are authentic insider perspectives. So we'll have a little pause for a conversation here. I think there's 9 of us, so I'm actually not going to send you to breakout rooms. Instead, I'm just going to turn off my share for a few minutes and invite 1 or 2 people to give some commentary on what you've seen so far, some t-shirts, some research material, some artistic material, a conceptual map for how we increase students' understanding of Islam. I'm going to be unkind here, actually. I think we'll start off as Sharon. I wonder if your microphone's working. What have you seen so far that has piqued your interest a bit? Would you start us off there? And then Tyra, I'll ask you afterwards, okay? You can come in second. Go on, Sharon, what have you got for us?
Evening. I particularly liked that artistic understanding for the 99 names. I'm actually teaching it tomorrow with my year 12, and I'm also revising it in half term with my year 13. So that actually will be an absolutely brilliant stimulus to revise with my year 13s about my year 10s, because my year 12s have never done Islam before. So to actually get them invested and also to not just see it as an academic study is exactly what I'm wanting. So that will be absolutely perfect for tomorrow. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm pleased if that's hitting the spot, because, you know, I was quite worried about talking to you lot today because you're all A-level teachers and I'm not. So there we go. Tyra, do you want to add something to that? What else have you got for us there?
Yeah, I think it, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic, yeah. I think it's really interesting when you're trying to deliver A-level about the lack of materials that are out there. And what I find quite interesting is using what on the face of it looks like some quite simple, engaging ideas and using them to start to delve deeper into something. I think they're really good stimulus material to really get them talking and to make it a bit more three-dimensional. Love the research element of getting some live discussion and thinking from different views within the community itself, and not just having a flat view or not just making it too much of a academic discussion.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? I want the academic, but I agree with you. It's like we need hooks, don't we? Hooks that will carry student understanding into a greater depth. And I'm always on the lookout for those. I'm always on the lookout for a decent. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to comment at that point, please? I'd be very glad if you do. I'll pick on other people by name.
I mean, I agree. I think that using art for those discussions, and I love the concept map as well, though. I thought that was fantastic. How you could either start with the concepts, you could start with them separate. How would you arrange them? You know,
it's
or
good.
you could start with the peripheral ones, and how would you link them? And something I changed a few years ago that I did was I give students like a map with lots of things written on it, and then they have to make the links rather than always like, oh, what can you think of? It's like give them the things and then they have to make the connections and explain why. And I think that that's a really powerful tool. And it's interesting how some, I don't know who the different advisors were that you had. Did some suggest the order could be like this and others suggested it might be like that, and students could think about, because for us
it's been really interesting. We've been back and forward about that many,
and that, you know, for the A level that we've got,
many times.
One of the things my students have struggled with, or we've really had to get our head around, is that you can have different views but still both be Muslim. I think sometimes they feel like it's got to be oppositional, and I can't write evaluation in Islam because I can't argue against it. Well, no, here's two different Muslim viewpoints that are both Muslim but have, you know, the different emphasis perhaps, or, you know, I think that's really, really powerful. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa, unfortunately, has been kicked out by her caretaker. Hope you can rejoin us, Lisa. Can I carry on? It's 16:44, and I feel like I've got 4 more things I wanted to do with you. So I'm going to keep blasting away at those. I think you're clever people, and you won't have any problem keeping up. I'll put 2 things in the chat there. One is the research piece from the British Muslim Youth Survey on Proud to be a Muslim, and the other one is an article about Shia Muslim pilgrimage, which I published in RE today, just a couple of issues ago, which I'd like to share with you now, not least because it includes this fantastic, absolutely marvelous set of, I'm going to skip through that one, but this absolutely marvelous set of images. Really grateful to Sarah Bakari and Ayaz Ali, because they have published this astonishing book of photographs, Arba'in, a lens into a sacred journey. And I'm really grateful as well to Zam Hussain, who has given an article, a personal perspective on the pilgrimage. So I don't know if you do it like this, but walking to Karbala to find eternal light. I tend to refer to the Hajj as a big pilgrimage, but goodness me, it's tiny. It's not 1/10 of the size of the pilgrimage to Karbala, as many as 45 million attendees. And obviously, you'll know all this, but this is my informational PowerPoint for pupils. 40th day after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein in 680 CE. And pilgrims come internationally, but most would be internal pilgrims within the nation of Iraq. And Sarah has commented on these photographs quite beautifully. I did the pilgrimage for 10 years. And she gives a bit of background about the Shia there, and about how important the status of Imam Hussein might be. Just look at this photograph for a minute. As they walk the pilgrimage, it's an occasion of hospitality. And at the end of a hard day's walk, my goodness, that's beautiful, isn't it? Everybody sitting around, sharing the food. It's only in a tent, it's humble. We're all sat on the ground. But I absolutely love the image of a little pinpoint of the Islamic Ummah in action as the hospitable reception of pilgrims marching comes through there. The sense of community, served generously, the Muslim concept of Ummah lived out in the experience. And this book, again, which I say collaborated to do the RE Today article, they say it's like you're visiting a living king, and it's awesome in the true sense of the word. And walking together for these days, you get this great energy, this beautiful, electric, captivating sense. The physical movement is what engages the language of love, the language of tears. You go as a pilgrim emotionally vulnerable. Your authenticity, it doesn't happen any other time.
Lat, do you have the name of the book?
Yep, I've got a copy, and the reference is, I'll put it back there, look.
I can just Google it quickly and find it.
Okay, that's Arba'in, A Lens into a Sacred Journey by Sarah Bakari and Ayaz Ali. You can chase that down. It's worth having. Fantastic photographs like this one. Oh my goodness, don't you want to be there?
Yeah, I'll put
it. She combines, her text is superb. It's a really lovely text because it combines an ethnographic insight, a spiritual devotional text with one that's quite historic and descriptive. And again, I make the point that A-level is in danger of drifting towards the historical descriptive and missing the spirituality that's at the heart of the pilgrimage. So there's a lot of background there about the, as she calls them, the holy ladies from the family of the Prophet, captive and tortured. And then relating that always to the personal spirituality of a Muslim pilgrim today, change and grow as a person, relate to these concepts of loyalty and sacrifice and shared humanity. Religious rituals can be life-changing. This is about personal growth and inspiration. It's really interesting how Sarah wants to relate that to the language of well-being in 21st century British culture. Oh my goodness, and the photographs. You only want to be there. I'll go quickly through those. Remember, 45 million, only 4 million at the biggest ever Hajj, only 80,000 at Wembley Stadium, only 100,000 at Glastonbury. This is what you call a pilgrimage, folks. Pick out from the tradition that Sarah writes about. This is, I've travelled hand in hand with Sunnis towards the grave. In Iraq too, Sunni-Shia harmony has been the norm for generations. That's important, isn't it? Because so often the textbook polarization between Sunni and Shia concentrates on difference. What does this body language say? And here's some pilgrim prayers. Oh my Allah, I give witness. You met with deadly dangers, but acted justly and fairly. Peace be on you, son of the first of the successful. That's a really important prayer, actually. It tells you a lot about the significance of the life of Imam Hussein in the context of Shia Islam and the photography, as I keep saying. Zam Hussein, he gives a pilgrimage highlight video there. His interview I sent to you as well. And that's an official video of the pilgrimage there. I'm sure you're accessing resources like this for your A-level teaching, but those are two which I found inspirational, really interesting. And I don't know about you, but I often found this. Do you know, when I was teaching A-level, I often had kids who were really aiming for a lower grade. They weren't Oxbridge material. They were just hoping to pass. And sometimes I ended up, I made this presentation for GCSE, but I've included it just like this for you today as an A-level resource, because I often think that we need still to start out from where the young people are. And that's in some ways rather simple. But I think if they tackle those tasks, 17-year-olds tackle those tasks in the context of an investigation of the spirituality and the history of Shia pilgrimage, then I think this will be a useful access point at least. You'll want to go further. Could I finish? Oh, goodness me, where did that hour go? Could I finish with something about ritual? I'm going to argue that all religions include rituals of moral ambition. What would I mean by that? A ritual that is designed to help you be the best human being, to live your best life, to be a good human. And of course, reconciliation, confession, as it used to be called in Catholic Christianity, would be quite a prominent, visible example of that, wouldn't it? And a wonderful thing it is too. You take your burden of sin, you say, I've been a bad lad, wish I hadn't been such a bad lad, and I'm really sorry, and I genuinely repent, I turn away. And the priest says, go in peace. It's penance, and then you can start with a fresh, turned over leaf. What a fabulous psychological release that might be. And all religions have got those. So I want to look at the idea of stoning the shaitan in the context of the Hajj as a ritual of moral ambition. And I actually think that there's a purpose to religious education, or to RVE, Religion, Values and Ethics in Wales, which says pupils must understand this ritual might have something to say. So just picture there, Muslims on pilgrimage, Muslims on Hajj. I love this photograph from 2 miles up in the air that shows the ever-increasing scope of the Haram Mosque. That one's out of date now, actually. That one's from 2005. But it shows, doesn't it? Look at those. People like atoms of dust standing in awe around the Kaaba. And you'll know the details of the ritual. I don't need to tell you this. But this one, that's a photograph from 2004, which is an important year in the narrative I want to share with you. That one's from 1994, and that was pilgrims trying to get to do the stoning of the shaitan just 30 years ago. Makes the M25 look like a picnic park, doesn't it? Impossible. So every year, the Saudi government rebuilds the Hajj so that it can accommodate increasing numbers of pilgrims with increasing ease. That photograph, can you date it? It's not as old as it looks to me. That's actually from 1953. So that's only 70 years ago, 71 years ago. And of course, numbers at the Hajj then were so much smaller. And there's one of the Jamarats with just a little stone catching wall around it. And every pilgrim wants that experience to be unique, a spiritual moment for themselves. And that's why the Saudi government has rebuilt the structure of the 3 Jamarats underneath those 3 quite larger canopies there. The one in the second one, the smaller one, is not so significant. But in 51 weeks, between 2 Hajjs in 2006 and 7, I think they did this, then they rebuilt the Jamarats under these vast canopies. There's some air conditioning under there, and these huge human motorways by which every pilgrim, 2, 3, 4 million, the biggest pilgrimage, 4 million can come and stone the shaitan in a single day. What a beautiful photograph. Look at the atmosphere of the early sunrise of the day on which, 84 million stones are going to be thrown at Satan in a single day. And it looks a bit like a car park to us, but look, it's way bigger. Can you see the Jamarat behind these open terraces, 5 levels of which you walk along there and you can stone the shaitan on 5 different levels. When your stone hits the pillar, then it will fall down to a conveyor belt and be taken back so that another bunch of pilgrims can pick up the stones and go and throw them a little bit later. Story that I want to tell you about the Hajj and the power of the ritual is actually a story of 9/11. Because a few days after 9/11, the Thursday after it happened on the Monday, this man who's called Mark Stroman, he was living in Huntsville in Texas, and he was a gun owner, and he had 3 guns, and he filled them all with bullets. And when he had heard that Muslim people claiming to be Muslims, un-Islamic actions, but when he heard that they had flown the planes, then he took his loaded guns and went into his town to kill anyone he saw who was a Muslim. He later described himself as a racist bigot. And he killed, the first person he killed was actually a Hindu woman. Then he killed a Muslim. And then he walked into his gas station with this young man, Rais Boyan, Bangladeshi Muslim naturalized American, was working. And this photo is a recent-ish photo of Rais. So let me tell you that he lived to tell the story. And I want to share his story with you. And Rais Boyan, well, Mark Stroman shot him in the face with a sawed-off shotgun. And Rais fell to the ground, bleeding, shotgun pellets embedded in his brain. He thought he was dying. The next picture isn't meant to trigger you, but do think about whether you'll share it with your students. That's Rais just after he'd been shot. And the police came and they arrested Stroman. And eventually he was sentenced to death for his multiple murders and his attempted murder. But the ambulance came and they took Rais to hospital. And as he lay on the gurney, he prayed, Allah, I've always meant to do the Hajj, and I've never done it. Sorry. And if you give me my life back today, if I survive today, I'll be. And this photograph is of the Hajj 2004, which is the one that Rais went on. I can't actually tell you which of those pilgrims is Rais, but he's in that crowd. And when he came to do the ritual of stoning the shaitan, I've put a bit of detail about it there, and the students need to know that. But when Rais came to that ritual, he threw a stone at the first of the Jamarats, and he shouted, they were open air back in 2000, and he shouted, no more hatred, out with hatred, as he threw his stone. And then he heard a voice. He never claims it's the voice of an angel, let alone the voice of God. But this voice said to him, if you want no more hatred, you must forgive. You must forgive Mark Stroman. And he found it paralyzing. He could hardly move. It was a powerful voice. He did complete his pilgrimage. And when he got back to the US, he phoned the prison where Stroman was on death row and said, look, I'm Rais Boyan. I'm a survivor of Mark Stroman's hate. And I want him to know that I love him. I forgive him. And he formed a friendship with Stroman. And he began to campaign for his death sentence to be turned into a prison sentence. And this strange friendship that developed between them led to this from Mark Stroman. I asked 1,000 times, could I forgive a man who shot me in the face? No excuses. I was a racist bigot. I tried to kill this man, and now he's trying to save my life. He's an inspiration to me. And Rice campaigned for the next 7 years against the death sentence that Stroman was under. And Stroman, through that friendship, recovered what he would have said was the childhood Christian faith that his parents had tried to give him, that he'd lost completely in his years of racist bigotry. Stroman says, I've got the Islamic community trying to save my life, led by the man who I tried to kill. That campaign was ultimately unsuccessful, and Mark Stroman was killed by the state of Texas in Huntsville prison in 2011, 10 years after he had done those murders. His last words were, hate goes on in this world, it's got to stop, it causes life. And poor Rais, that was his friend who died, not his attacker. He cried when Stroman died. And then he thought, right, what shall I do? God has given me this. God spoke to me through an angel or through a voice, or I don't know what, but God spoke to me. So what am I going to do next? And what he does now, Rais Bhuiyan works around America. This is a tough gig. A Muslim who visits American schools and tells his story of why he forgave the person who shot him in the face and blinded him in one eye. And Rais Bhuiyan travels around schools, picking up teaching like Quran 8 verse 1, Matthew chapter 5, verse of the peacemakers, comparing the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the Lord Jesus in Christianity. And he tells his story to pupils, to young people, to students all over America through his charity, which is called World Without Hate. Mark Stroman did was a hate crime, but don't kill him, because when we just lose one more, can't we have a different narrative around the anniversaries of the 11th? That page is from Rais's charity website, World Without Hate, and it shows some of the places, it's a couple of years old now, but it shows some of the places where he has been to tell his story of peace and reconciliation between Muslims and Americans. What a man! And I love the fact that his transformation occurred as a result of his undertaking what is in some ways just the perfectly ordinary ritual of stoning the devil, stoning the shaitan, stoning the 3 Jamarats at Makkah. I love the fact that that witnesses to the spiritual and moral power of the ritual, that it can be humanly, personally transformative in an extraordinary way. We've been asking students younger than your A-level to choose any 4 of these questions. Did Rais really hear the voice of Allah? Did Stroman go to heaven when he died? Can spiritual life help people to forgive? We've got writing. My goodness, we've got writing for this. I won't pause to read these out much, but just look at answer number 3 to the first piece there. Rais decided to forgive Mark for what he did. He thought about Mark's past, how he was brought up. Mark was uneducated and was shocked and confused about what had happened. He thought all Muslims were terrorists. But I don't think I'd have been able to forgive. Colleagues, these pieces are writing 5. These are from 9-year-olds. They got so into their work. They're studying the lesser jihad. They're understanding. They see the transformational power of the ritual of marriage. That's good stuff, isn't it? Rais heard a voice telling him Stroman should be forgiven. And I personally believe that Rais was a very good person to forgive Mark. I think Mark was very different by the time he died. I believe he went to heaven. That's interesting, isn't it? Now look, I was given until 5 o'clock and it's 2 minutes past. And what we're intending to do there is to stop the slideshow and just see if we want any further conversation there. I like the story of Rais Bhuiyan as a piece of evidence for the reality of God. I like to use that in arguments about the existence of God. I like it as a piece of psychology. I think the psychology of the narrative is fascinating. If Rais hadn't gone to Makkah, which he promised as he lay on the gurney with the bullet in his head, if he hadn't gone to Makkah, would his life after that have been just ordinary? I like the way in which that story breaks, overturns, and kicks into touch the evil stereotypes of Islam that function so powerfully in our lives. So that's probably a good place for me to shut up. I'd really love it if you've got a question you'd like to ask or a comment you'd like to make about that material. As I say, that is not exam technique. I have not helped you there to take your pupils through their essay answers. I'm sorry, that's not my thing. But perhaps that's about, those are just some examples I wanted to put in the scene. Places where the richness of Islamic culture and spirituality has kind of got through to me, has touched me. And whether that's the pilgrimage to Arba'in or a young man lying on a gurney and promising to go on the Hajj. Well, that's the power of Islam for me. I'm not Muslim, but I feel the power. There we go. Comments and questions will be most welcome, and we'll see how long we keep going for there. I'm just going to put the article. I've got an interview with Rais Bouyan, which I'll put into the chat bar.
You've interviewed him?
I haven't, but this is an article about him, which
Yeah.
includes some interview material. I have been in touch with him, and I must admit, I almost asked him for an interview. I was just a little bit in awe, and I didn't quite dare. I think I should have done. But what about?
I love the story. I was just thinking it's very like similar, and it's the same thing about that kind of forgiveness and that peace, that inner peace of Muhammadu, who
oh yes, yeah.
And same thing, I felt completely in awe of his story, but I was like, I have to use this in the classroom. And so I did. And then my students did some artwork and wrote messages to him to say about his story and how it impacted him. And for him, I use a video of it's Ramadan, and he's praying during Ramadan. It's the act of prayer, like you said about rituals and that kind of spiritual thing. And he's praying praying during Ramadan, and then his jailer comes to see him, and he becomes Muslim because of him.
Astonishing.
And then I sort of sent on Twitter, I put it out there, and then he saw them, and I was like, and
you got in touch with him.
Yeah, and
fantastic.
It's so kind of like we said earlier, they just make it 3D and real. You know, this is real life people.
Yeah. So in the chat now, the Rais Bouyan article from RE Today, Volume 40, Issue 2. You can just double click that and save it if you'd like to. That's a source that you can use with your students.
Yeah.
I think I like the fact that those 9-year-olds can analyze what was the voice.
Yeah.
Is that psychological or spiritual? What sense is that a real voice?
Or is it God? Is it God using is it God using your brain to give you that message?
Yeah. All that dialogue around that's quite interesting.
I think we could.
I said I'd pick on other people. Edward, I haven't picked on you yet. Edward, what is striking for you around the examples that we've been looking at? Lindsay, you're next. I can't hear you, Edward. Have you got some sound? Have you got a sound turn up, perhaps? It's connecting. It says it's connecting to audio now. Thank you.
Hello, can you get me there?
Yeah, that's good.
Great. Oh, sorry, let me just kill the noise on this phone.
Oh yes, there's a double. We've got two of you today.
What strikes me, I think it's amazing to have such a neat and tidy story that does so many things. You've got the Hajj, you've got personal transformation of both men. You've got the transformation of people's stereotypes. You know that it's kind of as a result of the 9/11 that you've got this coming out. And I guess if you want to make this as fertile as possible, we were just doing Problem of Evil in Sunni Islam with our GCSE today, and there's a strong feeling that that everything happens by God's decree, and it's inscrutable, but God can do good things from the most unlikely of. To us it looks like evil, but actually God's plan is greater, and so you could view it as a sort of good out of evil story as well. There's a
you're right. There. It's like flashing off in all directions, isn't it? There's a dozen things happening in that narrative.
Yeah,
I do think we need to go searching for those stories because in all kinds of ways, I'm a narrative theologian. If I'm any kind of theologian at all, that applies to me in Christianity as well as in relation to Islam. And that's actually governed by being an RE teacher, which involves being a storyteller. So to me, at A level, just as much as in Key Stage 2, telling great stories is a part of what brings the tradition into sharp and clear focus. I like that about the story.
Yeah, and storytelling. I mean, I think all religions tell stories, don't they?
They do.
Every religion's got its own pedagogy, but
absolutely.
The seerah as well, you could look at in terms of how Meccan society is transformed from this sort of daggers drawn hatred towards something much more, loving and community based, like this.
And thank you. Those are really such important observations. I'm not at this point, 1708. I'm going to quit the screen in a bit, but not until the rest of you have. But feel free to go if you need to at this point. But also feel free to chat a little further. Lindsay, I haven't picked on you yet. Did you want to make a contribution there for us? I'd be glad if you did. You've unmuted there, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you've got any volume. Can anyone else hear Lindsay? Give it a go, Lindsay. It says it's unmuted. Or if that's not working for you, perhaps you might like to make your commentary in the chat bar instead. Anybody else, please? Further commentary or responses to that?
I just think you've given us so much there. I'm just thinking back to those T-shirts at the beginning, and I feel like it was like weeks ago that we were in a I feel like you've really graciously packed in several different sessions into one thing for us, and there's so many ways it could be used. I know a lot of it could be used lower down, but I think a lot of it actually resonates with the A-level spec and my A-level students. And I know some of mine last year completed some of your surveys, and even just doing that, they were so excited that they could be part of this.
Great, thank you to them.
What I think, and I'm like, yes, come on, you know, do it, and they absolutely loved it. So I just thank you from them that this has happened, and
do share some of the published results, because some of the youngsters are quite excited to see that is leading to research that is now in use. So do share that with them. I'm trying to keep people abreast of that as we publish additional articles.
And I think with the A-level, I don't know if everyone else experienced this, or if you're teaching the A-level, it just felt, for me, it was OCR, which I love, but it was so scholarly heavy and like...
Oh, yeah, great.
Which is great, but to just remember to bring it back to life with these real examples and kind of the 3D element of it, I think is just so essential as well. And maybe now that we've kind of got to grips with, okay, this is the content we need, these are the people, this is the theories, we can start to bring in these... I liked what you said about the hinterlands. I thought that was
I know that's important.
Mapping those connections, so just thank you from my heart to you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. What a pleasure.
Yeah, but anyone else can comment if you like. I just wanted to say that. Does everybody here teach the A-level? No? You're just interested to come in here and sort of, I'm interested in how this group's sort of morphing into people just wanting to know more about how to do with teaching Islam as well. Oh, yes, you do, Lindsay. But really want to, I mean, I love teaching this A-level. It's really scary that it didn't, for me, have textbooks, but I've just, really enjoyed teaching it and getting my head into it and like getting more interested in academia again, and kind of, it's been really fantastic. Look on the Padlet for resources and think about what spec you might want to go with. Educast does have a textbook, so that's quite a popular one.
It's got to make a difference, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does make a difference, but my heart is with OCR as well. I love that spec. You do, and you use the RE Today stories throughout. Oh, with the A-level already, Sharon? Was I looking to be writing a textbook? I am. If you can find any publishers that are interested in backing one.
They so should.
Grants, because it's like, if not enough people pick it, it's hard to argue for it to be made. So it's kind of, it is something that I did approach some publishers about helping with one, but then they had 2 other projects, so I've helped them do that first. So I'll go back to them now. So I've done a philosophy one and a GCSE textbook. So that is a plan of mine. Yeah, good, well remembered. It's on my to-do list. But I don't know.
Just to say, colleagues, I mean, we don't publish. RE Today is a tiny little publisher, and we basically publish 6 books a year, which go into the NACRE mailing. We publish RE Today, and that's got, that's a big, wide RE readership, maybe 10,000 readers per term. And you are people who might think of contributing to RE Today, some of your expertise, both in terms of pedagogy and in terms of subject knowledge, and in terms of being what I've referred to really as story hunters. When I find Ali Calligraph, he's willing to do an interview, and I find Rais Bouyan and what a story to tell, then I know that that's something that maybe 10,000 RE teachers will value. You should be those hunters as well, and do consider RE Today to be an open door to publishing not long articles. An RE Today article is usually 12 or 1400 words. But Edward, Lindsay, Sharon, Tyra, Ruth, I would like to publish your stuff. So be in touch if you would like to take.
Yeah, I would. I wonder what would be the best something about, because there's also an A-level group that's just started. I saw, I think, a Natre group that started. So something. Does RE Today have a focus on different key stages, or it's always kind of got all of them in there?
RE Today magazine doesn't do much for 16 to 19, to tell you the truth. It's a 4 to 16 magazine mostly. In some ways we could do more, but that's always difficult. We have 96 pages and we cram it in. But so my colleague Ian Nicholson, some of you will know, Ian did the A-level Islam seminar at Strictly RE this weekend, and very brilliant he is in this. He's just joined RE Today as a new advisor, and he's been teaching A-level Islam for many years to students, Muslim and non-Muslim.
What's his name again?
Ian Nicholson.
Nicholson.
Okay. Ian Nicholson. So I know that he is really interested in the things that you're doing in this group. And I know that he's got lots of genius to share, actually. He's brilliant. Same as yourself. Same as yourself.
I wonder if he would be interested to come and meet us.
Yeah, you should ask him. He would love to.
Something else I was, the RE review used to be good for A-level. Oh, and dialogues as well. Does dialogue still run?
It's online now, not a published print magazine, but it's available online.
And have they gone into kind of the religion aspects now? Because it was always
still quite strongly a philosophy of religion. It's good.
Which is, well, obviously that's good. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. And if anyone else who's on the chat now would like to comment on something they'd like in future sessions, something in particular, I know people have mentioned Sufism before. I was going to reach out to Yomna, who gave us an amazing session on Al-Ghazali, to see if she could help pull some connections or come and speak to us about Sufism, or is there any other particular thing you might like us to cover in future? You can always pop it in the chat or tell me or email about it. But yeah, thank you for your time today, and thank you again, Lat, for coming. And
pleasure.
That was just amazing. That was just a whirlwind. I was like, do I tweet about it? Do I watch it? Do I take a screenshot and send it to the department? Do I send it to the students? What do I do with it? It's amazing.
I always think, an hour after school, that's a precious hour. Thank you for it. Let's try and pack it full. Like I say, you're clever people. You kept up.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will put the recording up for those who aren't here, and if you're watching on a recording, you can still get in touch with us about this. And yeah, I'm feeling inspired too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Very nice to work with you today.